Hi, my name is Reginald Harris, and I'm a senior fellow at the Children's Funding Project. And thanks for joining us for the latest video in our series of interviews with local and state elected leaders. Each of the leaders in this series has been a champion for kids and helped their communities fund essential services for infants, toddlers, children, and youth. And today, I'd like to welcome Erica Crawley, County Commissioner in Franklin County, Ohio. Commissioner Crawley championed the creation of a child care support team that recommended ways Franklin County could invest its federal COVID relief funds to support kids. This work led Franklin County, to allocate 22.5 million of its American Rescue Plan funding into initiatives to support early childhood providers and families with young children. Specifically, the federal funds pay for early learning scholarships for families, incentive payments for licensed childcare centers and home-based providers, and rental support for childcare workers. Again, welcome, Commissioner Crawley.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Reggie.
So I actually like to begin by asking you about the political landscape at the time you championed using American Rescue Plan funding to support children and youth. How much support did the effort have? Did you face any opposition? Can you sort of talk to us about how your community typically views funding to support programs for children and youth?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for the question. So I'm trying to think back to 2021 at the time, 2020 and 2021, we knew that the child care landscape as a whole, even, not just in the state of Ohio, but across the country, was crumbling. It was already unsteady, as you know, and probably everyone who probably will watch these videos know that it was already unstable. And then the pandemic just wreaked havoc on the industry, especially for providers, and having to be able to support a PPE and making sure that teachers were in a safe working environment. I was in the legislature at the time, but also working with Franklin County and my deputy county administrator, Joy Bivens, because we had already had a mandate that was going into effect and trying to make all of our childcare providers at least 1-star rated in order to continue to get publicly funded childcare. And so there was like a huge effort to, get all of our childcare providers on 1-star to meet that mandate in a pandemic. So, we had that one effort, but then when it came to supporting families and making sure that providers could keep their doors open, providers were saying that they were going to be closing within 1 month, and if not within 1 month, within 3 months. And here, Franklin County is the largest county in the state of Ohio. We have 1.35 million residents. We had over 900 providers, center and home-based. And a number of them were closing their doors. Just to give some reference, between August of 2020 and August of 2022, we had more than 230 providers close their doors. So we had, during 2020 and 2021, there was a task force that was put together. It's called our Recovery and Resiliency Task Force, that came up with recommendations on how we could invest ARPA dollars to try to stabilize the childcare industry. By the time that I resigned from the legislature to come down to the county and be a county commissioner. The city of Columbus, which is our largest city, we have more than 42 municipalities, but Columbus is our largest city, had dedicated a little over $2.5 million to different incentives, mainly making 250 scholarships available for families, and then signing bonuses for teachers to stay on or to, sign up to be a teacher. Because we already had this recovery and resiliency task force, which had internal stakeholders, outside stakeholders, and providers and family members, we felt like, okay, here at the county, we wanted to do something a little bit more impactful than what the city did. And we always have input from our community. And I'll tell you about that in a little bit. So because our task force have put together some recommendations, working with our R&R, our Resource and Referral Agency, Action for Children, we felt like the recommendations that came out of that were pretty solid. And we wanted to go ahead and take as many of those as we could, put as much funding in there to stabilize it. But also not just to stabilize childcare, we wanted to stabilize it, but we also knew that we had a bigger vision in mind, the county did. At some point in time, we want to be able to expand our early learning strategy across the county. And so we wanted to be able to get some data points. But we decided to invest in the scholarships, as you mentioned, the county made 500 scholarships available, up to $10,000 per family. And then we have 6 incentive awards for providers, and that is to try to keep their doors open. The 6 incentives were, during the pandemic, if you just continue to take publicly funded childcare, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for continuing to support families in that way. And so here we will give you anywhere from $1,000 to $2,500 just for that. If you were not star rated and you came in after the mandate, but then decided to get star rated, you could get an incentive for that. If you were already star rated and moved up the quality rating scale, because we invest in quality. So if you got a 3, 4, 5 star, you can get up to $10,000 as a provider. If you kept your doors open, during those non-traditional hours, which we heard from the community was a problem, especially for those who are frontline workers, during the 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. time frame, and then on the weekends you can get an award, and as well as if you opened up a new PFCC agreement. So if you didn't take publicly funded childcare before and you're willing to now, we wanted to say thank you. So there were a number of incentives. And also if you needed training and technical assistance for anything, whether it was getting money from the state or from the county and navigating the bureaucracy and red tape, we provide training and technical assistance for every provider free of charge. And then the last part of the incentives that we came up with that wasn't in the recommendations is supporting our workers. The first thing we looked at is trying to increase wages, to get more people into the industry and not leave. But that was going to be around $54 to $56 million a year. We just saw that as being unsustainable. But because we knew on average that our teachers only make about $12 an hour here in the state of Ohio, a lot of them are on assistance themselves, coming through our job and family services, trying to get benefits. We wanted to be able to support them with rent and utility assistance. And so we put $500,000 aside just for rent and utility assistance for teachers.
Wow. That is a lot, and it's really a comprehensive approach. And so I've been following this work, and we had a chance to meet back in DC at the NACO conference, and so been thinking a lot about it. So I guess to pivot, one of the things I'm curious to hear you speak about is like what did you learn from this process? Like, what were some of your main takeaways about how we fund children and youth in this country, and particularly in your county?
Absolutely. So what we found, just from the standpoint of not getting any pushback with such a significant investment in our kiddos and families, is as long as we continue to engage our community and they feel like their voice is heard, that they have a stake in what the county does with dollars, then we never really receive any pushback. And I'll talk about that from our Rise Together Poverty Blueprint framework. That was a framework that is a framework of how we spend our dollars here in the county based on what the community said our priorities are. And so we have 13 goals, 120 action items. But under those 13 goals, one of those goals is making early childhood education more affordable and accessible and high quality. And so because we had this year-long focus group in different parts of the county to gauge how should we spend dollars, not just ARPA dollars, because this came before the pandemic, just any dollars that the county has, how should we invest it? The community spoke, that is our framework, and we operate inside of that. We've done that with all of our dollars. And so during the pandemic, we did the same thing, engaged voices. And what we continue to find out pre-pandemic, during pandemic, and as we are navigating out of it and still surveying our community, is that people are willing to invest in our kiddos. They understand the ROI. They understand the return on investment. They understand that even for people who don't have children themselves, and they say, we are, if I did, I would invest. And even though I don't, I still invest because I see how it moves our community forward. And so, for the county, when it comes to investing in our kiddos, we know that we aren't the end all be all. We can't do it by ourselves. We're continuing to engage the business community. We call it here the partnership, which is our large Fortune 500 companies, to let them understand that, we always have the public dollars are always at the table, but this has to be a public-private partnership. And that it's an infrastructure, usually it's an infrastructure issue that we've been dealing with during the pandemic. If you don't have employees because they can't go to work, because they don't have childcare, then that impacts everything. And so, I think we're doing a little bit better than some of our counties around the state of Ohio who don't have as many dollars. People don't understand, the return on investment, or there is that that thought that, public dollars shouldn't go for taking care of other people's children. We don't have that here. It's not other people's children. These are all of our kiddos. And I think that's what I've been able to really see during the pandemic, that everybody here, for the most part, feels like these are all of our kiddos, and we have a shared responsibility to make sure that they're taken care of, and that education is quality and accessible for everyone.
Yeah, and Commissioner, at CFP, the national polls that we conduct support exactly what you shared, that folks, when presented with the opportunity to invest in children and youth, people see the value, right?
Absolutely.
And then I also love how you talk about community engagement. I think that's a phrase that is thrown around often, but I love that you have a framework that you presented, and you say, this is the framework we work within, right? Mm-hmm. These dollars, that dollars we work within this framework. So there's a consistency that the community is used to. So all really great stuff. Well, I want to end on just one note of advice. And so this series really is about and geared towards elected leaders. And I guess is there any particular advice or insights you would offer other electeds who are interested in pursuing something similar, particularly since American Rescue Plan dollars will expire soon?
Yeah, I would say for those who still have dollars, or even if you don't have dollars and you're looking at your general fund dollars or how to spend dollars, one thing that I have heard continuously as I have traveled and gone to different conferences and talked to folks, there is this sentiment that elected leaders have an idea of how they want to spend dollars, and then they take their idea to the people and to the other elected leaders just to get validation and buy-in, but that there really hasn't been a lot of flexibility in what, those dollars can go to, or no, that's a great idea, but have you thought about X? I would say be flexible, even for us. Right now, even though we put money aside in different categories, we made it broad enough that we have to shift based on the changing needs. And those change month by month, week by week. And so we can't hold hard and fast to, okay, well, we're just going to put 500 scholarships aside and $10,000. We see that there's a need for infant and toddlers. We designate it however much to a certain group and category, and that's not the needs of the community right now. And so we're shifting and changing. And so for elected leaders, I would say just be open to, whatever the community and the stakeholders, the experts say is needed at this time, and understand that might be different in 6 months. And so we want to be able to continue to meet those needs. So as you're looking at investing dollars, signing new contracts, with nonprofits and supporting them, that try to make sure that the language is a way that you can always change to meet the changing need. And then continue to engage parents and families. It's easy to just be with the experts and the nonprofits, but the parents, dads included, who feel like they've been excluded from the conversation, or just other spouses, people tend to focus on moms, but we know that parents look all different kinds of ways. And so let's be able to have their voices be heard, as well as our kinship providers and our caretakers.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Commissioner Crawley, for joining me today. I'm still really struck by it. I'm sitting with, I love the work that you led around thanking those providers and caregivers that, were just doing the work. They were taking public funds. They stayed open. I know I'll use I statements for myself. That's an area in which I always try to improve upon, is recognizing those folks who are already in it and doing the work. So I love that you did that. And for those of us watching this and reading, to learn more about the Children's Funding Project and view other videos in this series, please visit our website at childrensfundingproject.org. And again, thank you, Commissioner Crawley, for joining us, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for having me.